Good evening, everyone. This meeting of the School Board of Alachua County workshop for Tuesday, December 17th, 2019 is called to order. And I'm happy to see everyone here. Welcome. We're glad you're here and anxious to hear what you have to say. I'm going to turn this presentation over now to Mrs. Jackie Johnson, our Public Information Officer, and she'll go over the materials. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Ms. Roy, board members, ladies and gentlemen. We're here today to talk about the plans for a transitional campus, to begin with for Howard Bishop Middle School, but possibly for other schools down the line. But let's talk about the reason we're at this point. We are here because the half cent for schools was approved by voters back in 2018, and between the half cent and the $1.5 million capital outlay funding we'll be receiving, we'll be investing nearly $500 million in our local school facilities over the next 12 to 15 years, and the focus of those revenues is going to be on revitalizing our existing schools. As you know, the projects were prioritized based on a wide variety of factors, everything from the age of the facility, to the condition of the facility, to the use of the space. You may recall that our facilities team worked with some local consultants who visited every single building in this district. That's more than 400 buildings. They looked at every single one of those buildings with a fine-tooth comb to the point of going on the roof and looking at the age and condition of specific sections of each roof of each building to determine the prioritization of all of those projects. Projects are currently underway at 19 schools, and that involves either planning and or construction at those schools. But our first four large-scale projects, as you know, are occurring at Metcalf Elementary School, Idlewild Elementary School, Bishop Middle School, and Elementary School I. The district's applications to demolish buildings at Metcalf, Idlewild, and Bishop were approved by the Florida Department of Education. That is required, as you know, for any school district building that gets knocked down, and that happened in record time. Those applications were approved in about 4 months. Typically, that's a process that takes somewhere between 8 and 9 months, so certainly kudos for the facilities department for getting that through so quickly. Architects and construction managers have been hired for all four of the schools, and designs are now under development. And transition plans have already been developed for Metcalf. That will be happening on site. And for Idlewild, as you know, Prairie View is right now being renovated for the use as a swing school. And let me define my terms there. You have a couple of different ways of housing students while work on their campuses is underway. You can phase those projects, which means placing a few portables on the campus, or perhaps moving them, if there is space available, to a different building on campus, moving a few students to that particular set of buildings or building, do some projects, some of the buildings on the campus, renovations or construction or demolition. When you're finished with those, move those kids back, send another set of kids to those buildings, do another set of buildings on campus, move the kids back, and so on and so forth. That's called phasing. The other option is to create a swing school or transitional school, where essentially you are able to move all the students at the school and the staff someplace else. Now, that someplace else may be buildings within the same property, or it may be someplace off property. So in the case of Idlewild, what we're doing is a swing school at Prairie View. And as you can see, what we've got here is Prairie View Elementary School. The administrative offices that were there have been moved out, and that school is now, that campus is now under renovation. As you know, it hasn't been used in a school in quite some time. So there is some work that does need to be done. The students next year at Idlewild, all of them will be moving over to Prairie View. They'll be going to that school while their school is being renovated. And again, like Howard Bishop, that is a massive renovation project with lots of buildings being knocked down and reconstructed. And then after we're done with Idlewild, the Idlewild kids move back, and we can then use Prairie View as a swing school for Williams Elementary School and Lake Forest Elementary School. There are a number of advantages to using a swing school as opposed to phasing. One, it keeps students and staff out of the construction zone. And certainly depending on the layout of the school, the size of this property, the size of the student population, that is a major consideration. The ability to keep kids all together someplace else, it limits the risk of utilities interruptions and other disruptions to instructions. If kids are on a particular campus while you're knocking down buildings or building new buildings, especially depending on the, what I call the interconnectedness of the infrastructure, the electric, the sewer lines, the water lines. Somebody taps into a sewer line or accidentally hits a water line, chances are you're going to impact other parts of that campus. And that is going to disrupt instruction at that particular school. Work can continue during testing periods if the kids are away from the main construction site. And as you know, you're not just talking about a couple of days of state testing at the end of the school year. There is a lot of testing that goes on at our schools, and you want to be able to continue the work and not have to shut it down because of noise and other considerations during the school day. The projects get completed much sooner, and I'll have a little bit more information for you on that. And it is going to be much more cost effective, which means you have more money left to spend on permanent projects rather than on the construction. Now, when a lot of people think about swing school, a lot of people are thinking about portable farms. That is not what we're talking about. The technology that's available to districts now is much more advanced. So we are talking about a modular school. These are some pictures of some of the work that has been done by the company that we are going to be contracting with. And in fact, a lot of the institutions that use these buildings actually use them as permanent buildings. Broward County Community College, for example, uses these buildings as permanent buildings. They can withstand winds up to 130 miles per hour. They have 9-foot ceilings. As you can see, they're much sturdier. They're much more attractive. You can see they have covered walkways. You don't have the issue with accessibility problems because there are no stairs, there are no ramps. And you can just see from the interiors, they're just much better learning environment that's available. Some facts and figures about modular schools. They typically cost about $1 million a year to lease, depending on the number and the types of buildings you're using. So for example, if you need a full kitchen, that's going to be an additional cost. The cost of setting up a modular school is about $3 million. So every time you pick it up and move it, you're spending $3 million, again, depending on the number of type of buildings and where you're moving it to. And then the site work and the installation for a modular school takes about 6 months. So it's not a situation where you take the kids out at the end of the school year when their school is done. You pick it up and you move it someplace else over the summer, and the next set of kids can start in the fall. It takes much longer to get that modular school moved and prepared for the next group of students, and again, that figure is about 6 months. So that being the case, knowing all the time and the money that goes into building and then relocating these modular schools, they need to be used more than once at any particular location. Other considerations: do you need larger spaces? How big do those larger spaces need to be, and what sorts of spaces are? These are what we call the assembly spaces, so the media center, the dining area, the band room. How many of those do you need? Do you need them? How big do they have to be? Where do they have to be located? Things like that. The student population. Obviously, the number of buildings you're going to need and how big they have to be will depend on how big the camp is, how many students there are on the campus. Grade levels. It's going to look, the modular buildings are going to look a little different. So, for example, you're going to have more gang bathrooms at a school that's meant for middle and high school students, whereas for kindergarten students, chances are you're going to have bathrooms in the classroom. So that's going to be a difference. Special programs, if you have a magnet program, if you have special needs students, that's obviously going to change the dynamic there. And then, of course, you have to consider the parking and traffic. But no matter where that swing school is located, transportation is provided for the students to get there. So as I mentioned, we have transition plans for Metcalf. We have a transition plan for Idlewild. What we don't yet have is a transition plan for Howard Bishop. As you know, the Howard Bishop project is, as I mentioned, it's in the planning stages right now. A design is being developed. We are planning to demolish 18 buildings on that campus. That's classroom buildings, tech labs, computer labs, the dining and kitchen area, the restroom buildings. We're going to be constructing 32 new classrooms, 2 new science classrooms / labs, 2 new technology and business labs, a new kitchen, dining, multi-purpose area, and then we'll renovate and modernize the 7 existing classrooms that will be remaining to the tune of about $18.1 million. The school board has already approved several months ago the hiring of architect Paul Stressing, Inc. to design the redeveloped school, and that design is under development. As you know, we had the public input session on August 22nd. There was a faculty input session that was held October 11th. And then our facilities staff met with representatives from the community school on October 28th. D. Scorpio Construction has been hired as the project construction manager, and as I said, the application to the Florida Department of Education to knock down 18 buildings at the school was approved in mid-November. So some initial considerations in determining where to place the Bishop students during the construction. One, our facilities staff visited a number of other school districts, and that included site visits to other schools that had undergone major renovations. A very, very tiny amount of thought was given to splitting the students and moving them to other locations. I think maybe that got a moment's worth of thought, and that was ruled out. One of the things we heard very clearly during the community session was that they wanted to keep their school's identity and keep the students together. At the time that we had the community meeting, and some of you who were there will remember this, the plan was for a Wild Spaces Public Places project to be happening at the recreational facilities at Bishop. And you may recall at that meeting, the city's Wild Spaces Public Places director, Michelle Waite, was actually there to get input from the community on what form those recreational improvements would take. We looked at the impact of phasing the Bishop project. And it was determined that the additional cost for phasing Bishop would be about $4.3 million, if not more. And it would change the amount of time that had to be spent on that project from 12 to 14 months to about 2.5 years, if not more. So obviously that greatly increases the amount of time that it takes to get that school renovated. There was some brief discussion of perhaps using Lincoln Middle School as a swing site. The problem is the property there has significant drainage issues. Some of them are being addressed, the area between Lincoln and Williams, but that would not be the area we're talking about. Also, Lincoln is not really a convenient site for a swing school. And the thought was, because of the expense and the time of moving these modular schools, the ideal would be able to use a transition school for 3 projects. So those are some of the considerations that were taken into account as the staff was looking at placing a swing school at Westwood Middle School. Excuse me. So here is the satellite view of Westwood. Here's 34th Street. Up here, just out of frame, is 16th. And down here is West Side Park. So here is the area we would have been talking about. And again, the plan was that there would be a fence separating the 2 campuses, and that is so that the people and the staff at each campus, they have better control and supervision over their students. They have a line separating which is their school and which is Westwood. So Howard Bishop remains its own school, Westwood remains its own school. And it's a way of giving the staff an easier way to control and supervise their own students. Now, a couple of considerations if the swing school was going to be at Westwood Middle School. It meant that the most Bishop students would be taking buses to the Westwood campus. The estimate is that would be about 18 to 20 buses. There are currently about 114 students at who are zoned for Westwood who are attending Bishop right now. Obviously, we have no way of knowing how many of those 114 would end up riding to the school or having their parents drive them to school, walking to the school, but that certainly is a consideration. The district was looking at staggered start and dismissal times and other strategies to address traffic congestion. That could include law enforcement support and additional staff at each school. The students and staff would be off the Bishop campus during the construction, and again, that's certainly a benefit. What would then happen was that the Westwood students would move into the modular space after the Bishop students leave, and then when the Westwood project is completed, the Littlewood students across the street would move into that modular campus. So, leading up and during, I would guess about July and through the month of October, our district facilities staff met with a number of, and our design professionals met with a number of folks from the city of Gainesville, including representatives from Wild Spaces Public Places, from Parks and Rec, from Gainesville Regional Utilities, from Gainesville Fire Rescue, and they talked about things like the use of West Side Park for bus drop-off, for overflow parking, for recreational spaces. They talked about utilities access, they talked about safety and security, and they talked about emergency services. Then our Assistant Superintendent for Operations, Paul White, and Tom Cowart met with the city manager and some of his staff on November 26th. That was the Tuesday before the Thanksgiving break. And they got some additional information. There were some new developments that they learned about. That included a renovation drainage project that is now being planned for West Side Park. The potential delay of that Wild Spaces Public Places project at Howard Bishop, and I will explain why that's critical in just a moment. So that was new information. There was also the offer of Citizens Park as a potential swing school site. There was also an offer for the district to lease the RTS bus compound. And you're wondering how does that all fit in? There was some discussion at that meeting of perhaps we would knock down the transportation compound, put a swing school on that particular site, and the city would be willing to lease us their now abandoned RTS bus compound, and we could move our bus compound to that location. And I think the cost was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $101,000 a year to be able to lease that site. So that was a discussion that came up, and I will talk about why that's really not a workable option. And then, of course, we had the PTO meeting December 3rd at Westwood Middle that included, obviously, a number of concerns, particularly traffic and parking and other issues. And then, of course, we had a PTSA meeting the following week on December 11th. So, this area here, again, remember when we had that community meeting back in August, and Wild Spaces Public Places was there with us getting input from the community about what their planned improvements in this area should look like. Because the plan was to do those improvements, for the city to do those improvements while we were working over here. Makes sense. Get it all done at one time and then move all the kids back and everything's done. Well, once we heard from the city that this project is being pushed back, this now means we have this space available again, which makes Howard Bishop potentially an option. But there are some considerations there. So how that would work is after the Bishop students move into their new facility, students from another school, maybe Westwood, maybe someplace else, would then be bused to that modular campus while their schools are being renovated. What we don't know is whether or not the size and the infrastructure available there would fit both Bishop and other school populations. So, say it would be Westwood. Well, Westwood has 400 students more than Bishop does. Also, the issue, even if you use it as a swing site for Bishop, you're not going to have access to a full kitchen during the renovations at Bishop because Bishop's kitchen is going to be knocked down And Metcalf across the street, that kitchen is not going to be available either. So you are going to need a full kitchen in the modular school. Is there the space and the infrastructure to fit all the additional students that are currently at Westwood, in addition to a full kitchen that you would need even for the Bishop students? Or for the population of whatever other school might be able to use that as a swing site. So that is something that has to be considered. We would obviously be looking at staggered start and dismissal times and the same other strategies we'd be looking at Westwood to address the traffic congestion. And we'd also want to know what would be the long-term impact on Wild Spaces Public Places improvement timeline. If we use Bishop as a swing school for 2 schools, if we use it for a swing school for 3 schools, then all that property is, Wild Spaces Public Places couldn't get to it. How long would that then delay that particular project? That's something to be considered. As I mentioned, one of the things that was raised by city staff during that November 26th meeting was the possibility of placing a swing school at Citizens Park. There's that big piece of property back here, which we have since learned from folks who have heard about this potential plan, is used by a lot of schools for soccer practices and a lot of community events, so on and so forth. This is 8th Avenue here, Waldo Road is here, this is Citizens Field, just to give you a sense of where we're at right now. So that was floated as a potential site for a swing school. We'd have to look at the feasibility of the site, the size, the utilities, all the infrastructure we would need. Would we have access to this site long-term? We don't want it for just 1 year or 2 years or even 3 years. If we're going to put this swing school at a neutral site, we want to be able to use it for a number of schools, which means we'd need it for a longer term. There would be significantly higher costs because, again, you don't have the same infrastructure that you do at some of our existing schools. So we'd have to look at the additional costs that would go into making this site workable for a swing school. Obviously, you'd have increased transportation costs because we don't have any school students at that particular site. So whatever school ends up going to Citizens Park, they would all have to be bused there from whatever school it was. And then, of course, you have traffic, parking, and safety issues, as you would at any site. Anywhere you're going to put this modular school, that is going to be an issue. There were some other sites that have been suggested. Aquin Jones, that is too small. Some folks suggested we move everybody out of the district office and put folks here. Of course, we're in a 120-year-old building. It hasn't been used as a school in decades. And as you know, it's been chopped up and renovated and partitioned beyond all recognition. So it would be a huge expense and very time-consuming to get it back into shape to use as a school. There would be a number of code issues. As you know, there are a lot of infrastructure problems. You may recall when the Board of Education, was it the Board of Education, was here, was it about 6 weeks ago, we had the sewer problem in the ground floor when we had sewer water all over the ground floor. So it's an old building, it's got old infrastructure. And the grounds would be too small to be the site of a modular school. Again, that issue with using the ACPS transportation compound and moving our transportation operations to the RTS bus compound. Keep in mind that's an active industrial area, so we would have to do an environmental study. It would mean we'd have to demolish the entire compound, which means not only the cost, but we'd have to get permission from the state of Florida to knock down those buildings. Now, keep in mind, we just put up a $250,000 bus wash and did a $173,000 roof replacement. And you know that one of the factors that the state looks at is how much money have you spent on a property recently. So the chances that the state would be willing to let us knock down those buildings are probably slim to none. We'd have that additional cost to lease the RTS bus facility. And again, it's not a very convenient location to serve as a swing school for other schools. Some folks suggested the fairgrounds. We don't own that. That's certainly one issue. But the main issue is that it's too close to the Gainesville Regional Airport. And Florida statute says you can't put a school in a flight path. It's not just the noise, but it's a safety issue. That same holds true for the Job Corps building, which is also an active industrial area. So those were some other sites that were suggested or that we looked at that just were not viable sites. So our next steps involve ongoing communication with the City of Gainesville regarding site options and feasibility studies, and that will include traffic reviews on any potential sites for a swing school. And again, the goal is to avoid or minimize any potential delay in beginning the construction while still providing the best possible solution for the greatest number of students. Again, I would encourage anyone, we keep up with our school map on a pretty much daily basis as new projects come online. As I said, we've got 19 projects going right now. Our website, if you go on our main website, there's this red tab up here that says Facilities Update. We also have a banner that if you go to that website, you can check out our story map, and you can go school by school, see what projects are planned, see when they're planned, and those projects that are underway, you can see the progress that has been made. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to any questions that board members may have, and I may not be the one answering the question. It may be someone from facilities, and they are all here and are prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Sure.
We have citizen input? No?
Board member questions first.
Oh, board member questions. Okay, I thought we were going to put those on hold. Any board member questions? Yes, Mr. Hyatt.
Madam Chair, I would like to ask, I think probably Assistant Superintendent White would be the person to ask, to answer, but what is the timeline as far as a traffic study? If you could just help us out with that.
Madam Chair, board members, we estimate that will be done sometime probably in March. Finish.
What finishing? I didn't hear. I'm sorry.
They would be finished in March.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else like to ask a question? Go ahead, Ms.
I had gotten a lot of emails from citizens about the traffic study, about the impact of getting the students to and from school with the staggered start time, like what would that look like, as well as the impact, concern about the impact on after-school activities and things of that nature with the staggered start and stop time. That was one of the things there. I don't know if you want me to roll them off or we just kind of go like that, be doing one by one.
And again, I may not be able to answer all these questions, and quite frankly, we may not be able to answer all these questions because we don't have the answers to every single one of those questions, exactly how that would look like. One of the things that I said at the Howard Bishop meeting, and obviously we would be looking at all of those things very carefully, and the feasibility study will be looking at a number of things, not just, for example, the traffic reviews. It's not just going to be what does the traffic look like, and what's it going to look like if a school is placed in a particular location, but what are some potential strategies for minimizing the impact? So that will be part of the traffic reviews too. So there are some questions we cannot answer right now. But again, one of the things that you know, I said to the Howard Bishop folks is if we are waiting until we have every answer to every single question and anticipating every single possibility, we won't ever get started. But again, our goal will always be to do what is best for the students while still trying to move forward. And that's why the decision was made to step back and look at other options besides Westwood, especially in light of this new information that we had from the city. But all of those things are things we're going to be considering, no question about it. And we've heard lots of those concerns from a variety of people. And as you can imagine, depending on where they live, what their situation is, everyone has different concerns, and we completely understand that.
So I guess I understand what you're saying, I follow that. So the citizens that emailed the board members, and where all of us got those, has a list of those questions and those concerns been compiled?
All of that's
and
being,
you all will?
all of that is being collected, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so there's no need for me to go and
No.
to go through that list right now for that?
No,
Because I want
we have-
citizens to know that I did hear them, that we have heard them, and
Absolutely.
we're going to acknowledge what they tried to communicate to us, and
Absolutely.
we're not just overlooking that. That's the concern that I
Yes,
have.
absolutely.
Dr. McNeely?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, let me start by saying to community members and citizens, we've gotten so many letters with many recommendations. And since Mrs. Johnson has stated that you've made a list and that you will thoroughly go through every single item,
Yes.
that makes me feel really great.
Yes.
But I wanted to question, since you said you visited, or facility folks
Yes.
visited many districts, what were some of the things different from what we have listed as suggestions? For instance, you mentioned the split scheduling, you mentioned all of the modular buildings at one site, staggered times, traffic consultations, I guess. But what were some of the things that facility folk saw in other districts that we haven't listed in our recommendations?
Sure, and I will ask Mr. White to address that, but one thing I want to make sure I made absolutely clear, did I make it pretty clear that Bishop is just not a good site for phasing? The layout of the campus, the massive nature of what's going to be done at that school. You're talking about 18 buildings coming down. And what I call the interconnectedness of the infrastructure means that Bishop is not a good candidate for phasing. Leave aside the additional $4.3 million that it would cost and the fact that it would stretch out the projects from 14 to 16 months to 2.5 years, possibly more. It's just a bad site to try to do the phasing because everything's going to be happening basically all in that space. And the pipes and everything else are so interconnected that the chances of frequent disruptions while the construction is going on, if you try to phase it, are really heightened at Howard Bishop. And so that's one of the things, I'm not sure I made that clear enough, is Bishop is just a really terrible candidate for phasing for a number of reasons. And a lot of that, other schools, it's a much better option. Bishop is not, basically because of the layout and the amount of work that's going to be done at the school, the size of the campus, so on and so forth. So other than that, your original question, I will leave that
And
to
Mrs. Johnson, I
Yes.
have something else that it may not make sense to folk here, and especially not to facilities, but I was thinking if we're going to spend that kind of money setting up modular schools or spots,
Right.
I wish for the millions that you named this afternoon, I wish we had some kind of property where you put that, and once all of the projects are done, that's still our space for us to do
So
other
do we.
things. That's
We
what I want.
absolutely wish.
That's
We-
what I
Absolutely,
want.
and we wish we had one of those that we owned that could be used, yes. We're with you on that one.
If you're
Absolutely.
considering, and we are going to have to buy property, why not?
Oh,
why-
you're talking about buying property?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's,
Why not? I heard from the Assistant Superintendent of Finance that we are getting ready to do some bonding.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Let's, and leave it as a Alachua County School Board property, and we have all kind of things that we could do with that school.
well, and I hear you. Now, keep in mind, though, you have to consider the availability of property. And SPAC, the school, I always forget, School Planning Advisory Committee spent a year working with our facility staff and working with John Gilreath. And as you recall, these are citizens from all of the local communities who looked at the possible places where you can put a school. And there are an awful lot of there are actually very few places that are suitable. For one factor or another, either they are in a flight path, or they are in a water management zone, or they are on previous dumps, or there's a whole host of factors that the SPAC went through that eliminated big chunks of property in this community off the potential list. And that's the problem, is, believe it or not, there aren't a whole lot of good spaces, pieces of property in Alachua County, or at least within Gainesville proper, that would make a good site. So I know from the process I saw at SPAC that was a significant issue.
I realize that, but I think we need to go back to the drawing board, because we've got a situation here with not only Westwood and Bishop. Littlewood will be next, and you name quite a few other schools. But if we're going to spend this kind of money setting up modular, it needs to be ours for good.
Yeah, and now keep in mind, we would not be using a swing school for all projects. Not all projects, like Metcalf, for example. We're not going to need a swing school.
I know.
So I don't want people to get the impression that any place we're doing a major project, those kids are going to have to move to a swing school. That is definitely not the case. But
you have quite a few.
We will have some, yes. Yes, absolutely. And Mr. White, you want to talk about?
Madam Chair, in our due diligence in going to Osceola County, Orange County, Leon County, Seminole County, we covered the list. The thing that did stand out, though, was the use of a transition or a swing school. Everybody indicated that if you could do that, you save on time, you save on money, and it's just a much safer environment. So that is, all of that due diligence led into our thinking in terms of how to proceed here. And as Jackie said, there's some schools that won't be. We have some schools that will be major challenges when we get to them on the list. So, and going back to the property acquisition, I guess SPAC came down to 4 sites, all of which were on the edge of the urban reserve, and might, I'm trying to think of a school in the west that we'd have to do that in, but it would be in proximity to those schools, but would be quite a bus ride from anything in Gainesville or on the eastern side of the county. So
thank you for addressing that question. And I heard you said you looked at everything in Osceola, Seminole, Orange. I missed
Leon
one or two counties. But I guess I want to know, if you can tell me, or someone from your team, other than what we're trying to do, what were some key things that were done in the district that we have not looked at here?
I don't think so, Mayor.
Okay.
We tried to cover the gamut and learn as much from other districts that have already been through this experience. And so the issue of time, the issue of, project increases, the fact that you have 12 years, but it's totally dependent on the economy. So the issue is, you need to get as much done as quickly as you can, because costs will escalate. And as some of you may recall from the bond issue in the 90s, the district wasn't able to complete all the schools because of those factors. So I showed a newspaper article which said J.J. Finley, the funds were not adequate to complete which was originally planned. And so we're trying mightily to execute everything we've projected at each school.
Are you done?
I guess.
Okay, Dr. Paulson.
Have you looked at another district that has anything the scope of what we're doing, though? I I mean, this is gigantic. I mean, the whole district. I mean, we're redoing our whole district. I'm just saying, is there any, when we say we look at this is
Madam
gigantic.
Chair, I know Palm Beach County, the county and the school board went in on about $1 billion sales tax. I guess it's a whole cent. I don't know the breakout of it, and given the scale, I doubt that Palm Beach County is doing every school just because of their size and the scope.
Okay. Other board member like, yes, Ms. Certain.
Thank you. I know we would like to keep the schools together for the integrity, but was there any thought given to splitting the population up? Because I think in Orange County, they did do that with a couple schools that they redid. They've had an initiative for a while, and it's not ideal, but for 1 year, they were able to move the students off. I remember it was in elementary. My daughter volunteered at it, and the school was split into two different schools, two nearby schools while they completed the project.
I was not in on those discussions, but my understanding was it was mentioned and very quickly discarded. Because what we heard was that they wanted to keep the school together. They wanted to keep Howard Bishop as Howard Bishop and not separate parents and staff.
And then there was one other suggestion that a citizen, two suggestions. Well, someone mentioned to me after the last meeting, Duval Elementary, the field behind there, and I responded that I did not know how big that field was because it's been 30 years that I've been back there alone for any significant amount of time. And the other was Lofton, the campus at Lofton, that there was a Horizon or something along that line. I don't know how that was looked at, so.
Madam Chair, your team has spent a great deal of time looking at sites. And candidly, what's happening now is everybody's throwing out this site and that site. You know, when you think about it, the suggestion that we put a school at our transportation department. Now, you weren't on the board then, but the rest of you have been there. It's an industrial site. We fuel gas. We do all of that. I mean, some of these things we went through. We went and looked at them, and Jackie listed those. We have worked very hard on coming up with the best suggestions, and those suggestions that appear viable, we're researching. So we will do that. When I see some of the emails that are forwarded, basically the tenor is, we support the sales tax, we just don't want it here. We don't want it in our backyard, and I understand that. But again, as we talked about at the I-3, and we talk about everywhere, there's no way you can do $500 million of renovation and not have some inconvenience. There's going to be some dust, there's going to be some dirt, there's going to be some noise. But at the end of the day, our school district will be changed for generations to come. So we will work on the best solution for our kids in the neighborhood, but there will be inconvenience. There's just no way around it. I haven't talked to one school district anywhere that's done this that said everybody was happy, because there's inconvenience. So I just think we need to take that into account, because you can get into paralysis by analysis, and we are diligently working on the options that are available, again, so that we can get all these projects done. The longer we delay, the more expense goes up.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Hyatt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to just point out that when Ms. Johnson is talking about the idea of splitting students was discarded almost immediately, that was that didn't come from district staff. That came from the Howard Bishop community, the Howard Bishop faculty, Howard Bishop parents. So the idea is they wanted to not lose the identity of their school for a year or thereabouts. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think most of us know that, but it wasn't an idea discarded by staff. It was an idea that immediately was opposed by the Howard Bishop community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hyatt. Dr. McNeely?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to say, inasmuch that we will be pushed back until, I think I heard Mrs. Johnson or either Mr. White say March for traffic, am I saying the correct month?
The goal is to have the feasibility studies, including the traffic reviews, done.
By March?
Yes.
All right, so that means that, I think Mr. White said, or you said, Mrs. Johnson, that with the feasibility study ending in March, that means some other things would have to be pushed back, right?
Well, the goal is to limit that, but yes, we would not be starting the Bishop project. We may not be starting the Bishop project as quickly as we had originally anticipated.
Okay,
Yes.
so if we know that, and you have said it's such limited property and space in Alachua County due to the SPAC feasibility study, we could still have time to do some other things. I'm looking strictly at Mr. White and Mr. Coward now, because they're the ones intertwined and to have to do a lot of work other than all of the people. I see Mr. Souza and some other folk sitting to the right. But I am just amazed that we don't have any land within the rights of these schools that we can't put this modular type buildings.
Well, there is the potential that there may be other sites.
Then
And
why
that's-
can't we look at that?
We would be.
Oh,
Absolutely.
well,
We
I
would be.
kind of thought Mr. White was saying we have done what we needed to do.
No, there is the potential of other sites,
Help.
and we would certainly look at that.
Help me, Mr. White.
Two things. We continue to look at options and determine whether they're feasible. Second thing is I want to clarify, similar to the Gastaldi, when we look at these modular schools, there's certain structures, i.e. the administrative buildings, which have to be designed and they have to go through a similar approval process by DOE in order for us to be able to use them. So if you think about the Gastaldi process, but it's not a return on investment, but they have to approve that design, we will need to be able to move forward on that because you'll need that wherever the modular school is located, if I'm making sense.
No, you did not at that
Okay.
point. I
So
heard
let
you
me say
say
it again.
administration, so you're talking about the current administration building, let's say Bishop.
Not what will serve as the administration building for the modular school,
Oh, okay.
okay? That design has to go to DOE and have approval. So, and that's regardless of where it goes. So I'm saying that, so if you see an item that comes forward that talks about design for certain buildings, I think there's 6 of them. We have to do that regardless of the site. So I just want everybody to be aware that, there are lead times required, the things we have to be able to do, processes and approvals in order for us to move ahead regardless of the site that is eventually selected for the building. So, and again, just to reiterate, we are looking at other sites, other options, and having to make a determination of whether those are feasible or not.
My final comment, and I promise you, I want you to find an alternative site other than the ones you have listed, and let us know about that, and the citizens know. And I'm here to say, if we're gonna spend 5, 6, 7 million, and I heard Mrs. Johnson say that large amount of money, we must keep that for us. The superintendent applauded it, but I know there are a lot of other things that come into that, but we have all kind of programs that could utilize that space. And I'm not for spending that kind of money for 7 years, 9 years, 12, and it's not ours. That's my final comment.
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. Anyone else? Ms. Clark?
Just another piece of information, just as we're kind of talking through all of this. As we budgeted the projects, my direction to staff was a conservative budgeting process, because I don't want to have what happened in the early 90s with the bond issue, where you get to that last school and you're out of money. And we wanted to avoid that. So we were extremely conservative in the budgeting process, because ideally what we'd like to have happen is at the end of 12 years is, oh, look, we did not spend all the money and we can tackle some additional projects, because there are more projects that need to be done, even beyond where we are right now with the project plan. But as we work through that, as well as other construction projects locally, because we're not the only ones that will be building locally. The University of Florida has some very significant projects on the horizon. Those are some discussions that probably we all need to have locally with the heads of various municipalities in the University of Florida, Santa Fe, to talk about that, because that will drive prices up in our region. And so as we look at that, we've asked our folks to kind of give us an idea. If we start to delay projects, what does that do to the cost? Because that is something we're going to have to absorb. So conservatively, when you look at a 5-year historical data nationwide, it looks like about an annual increase of about 5% per year for non-residential, which we qualify in. However, because of our local market conditions, that number is actually a little bit higher, anywhere from 6 to 12%. So bottom line for Bishop, if you're, well, actually dollar amount, if you were looking at a $15 million project, that could cost us anywhere from an additional $1 million to $1.8 million if you were looking at those kinds of estimates and project costs. So I just want to put that out there as just part of this whole process. It doesn't mean not delaying, so we make sure we get it right. We want to make sure we have a right decision. But also as part of that process, as we start to delay projects, those costs are going to increase, which of course down the line impacts everything that we're able to do. So that's just some recent information from some of the folks we've been working with. And again, that could, obviously that can change the way that building construction happens, but right now we are seeing an uptick, and we are seeing an uptick locally as well.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Mr. Hyatt.
For my final comment for this section, I think I wanted to just mention, as far as costs go, if we are, I think ideally we would all like to see any of these investments in modular buildings be permanent, but not the total consideration, but a major consideration is, and I think Mr. White has mentioned this, a major consideration is what's our total spending going to be. We might, if we are saving significant sums, and all analysis indicates that we will be, if we're saving significant sums by having, on some of these cases like Bishop, a construction site and students move off totally, that's going to more than compensate for the cost of setting up the modular buildings and doing the work that we have to do for that. And I think the idea, again, of wherever this ends up, that we can use it for 3 or more schools, and that's the plan. That's what people, I think that's what we'd like to do. I think we need to always keep that in mind, because we're trying, as the superintendent said, we are trying to be conservative with taxpayer money. And all of you in the room, thank you so much for us to be in the situation where we have these problems to consider. But I just think it's important to look at the financial bottom line as one, not the only, never the only, but one of the considerations that we need to take seriously. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hyatt. I also will mention that if we have to bus 3 schools to a location rather than doing something like at Westwood, that will impact the bottom line too enormously. If we're transporting 1,000+ students from Westwood to Bishop for a year, that's quite a bit of money, and might even entail buying more buses to achieve that. I'm not sure. And also, we're leasing these modular buildings. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, that's what was my understanding. All right, any other board members or the superintendent? All right, then we will open it up for citizen input. We're happy to hear from you. If you could please state your name as you come to the podium and keep your comments to approximately 3 minutes, that would be appreciated. Thank you. So just come ahead.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Oyanarte, and I am here representing myself. I'm a teacher at Westwood, and I wanted to go back real quick to what Mr. Hyatt said about the Howard Bishop community and faculty and staff not wanting to be split up, and it was immediately decided, no, that's not an option. And from what I understand, and I respect that, and I get that, from what I understand, there were lots of meetings held, or some meetings held in the spring or with Howard Bishop. Westwood had no meetings. We didn't know anything about any of this until October 31st when we got an email. And I know we don't want to live in the past, but you know, one of the things that didn't happen was we were not brought into the conversation, and our neighborhood was, who all is here, was not brought into the conversation, and it's really upsetting. And I love your idea, Ms. McNeely, of a permanent site somewhere, because I do believe we are investing a lot in these modular, whether we're leasing them or not. And that's our fear, is that it's not going to be just 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 9 years, 12 years. It's going to be permanent, because why would you move that after you've invested so much time and money and energy to get that all set up, and then to have to take it down and move it? It just doesn't seem logical. So we're very optimistic because you have slowed everything down, and we're feeling really happy about the questions that have been asked, and I want to thank you, and my gratitude is huge, as you're suggesting all kinds of things. And I even heard that someone might donate donate land. I don't know if that's true, but hopefully, you know, that's an idea also. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Orianati. Hello.
I wrote it down because I don't want to get emotional, because
Of
this is an
course.
emotional subject for me. My name is Carolyn Weber, and I am the mother of 2 school-age children, one in middle school. He currently goes to Howard Bishop, and I have a daughter in elementary school at Gainesville Country Day, which my son also went to, and it's about 30 minutes from our house. But our best option for elementary school, unfortunately. We live about 200 yards from Citizens Field Park. We're not really even sure the name of it. We've always called it Citizens Field. And I really want to say thank you guys for the time that you've invested in this process. We appreciate it, and we know that you all want what's best for our kids. My son is a 6th grader at Howard Bishop, and my daughter's a 3rd grader. My son, Gage, currently walks to school, and that's been a huge boost for him. You know, we used to have to drive about a half an hour every day, had to wake up very, very early. He's been loving it. He loves Howard Bishop. He loves the program. He's actually in the magnet over there. So I'm pretty invested in this whole thing. I am very invested in Citizens Field. I'm very invested in my children. So first and foremost, I'd like to say that we who live by that field are vehemently opposed to using it as the modular school. I can't speak for everyone in the neighborhood, but most of the people that I've spoken to agree with me. Mostly not because we don't want a school there, but because it'll be a loss of valuable green space that we use almost on a daily basis. The field is used for co-ed and women's ultimate frisbee. We see the Pee Wee football kids out there all the time. It's used for adult soccer in the summers. It's used for high school soccer and a number of other things, flying kites, running around the field. I think my husband's logged about 3,000 miles around that field. I've met all my best friends at the field playing ultimate frisbee. I would have no idea that there were other children in our neighborhood if it wasn't for that field. So as you can see, I'm strongly opposed. My second point is, and I think you guys are doing it, but I think that we and you as the school board just need to slow this whole process down. I think there are viable options for the swing school site. I know you're saying this beautiful building that we're sitting in is not one of those. I disagree. I've lived on the east side of town for years. I'm very invested in this neighborhood, in downtown, in the revitalization of the east side of town. I think there are better options. I think there are better options for our children, and I think that you guys can explore those if we slow this whole process down. So that's what I want, and that's what I'm asking you to do.
Thank you, Ms. Weber.
Good afternoon. I'm Sean Weber. That was my wife that you heard from. So I'm father to 2 school-age children. Our son Gage goes to Howard Bishop. So, and it's a little new being in the public school system for us. We loved our school, Gainesville Country Day, but unfortunately we didn't have a local school, an option, a good option for a public school. So I think that's something we need to look at. We need to have, our neighborhood needs to have a good public school option. Luckily, the magnet program at Howard Bishop allowed our son to enter the public school system in our neighborhood. What's gotten me here is the Citizens Field option. To me, it's not an option. I mean, it's going to be a very strong opposition to it at the City Commission. And frankly, I'm appalled that they even presented that option. So I know how it happened. It was brainstorming at a meeting. That commissioner has backpedaled and said, no, I never offered it. But I'm sure it was said. But now that we know about it, there's going to be a lot of people, very, very against it. I think it'd be a waste of money to look at a feasibility study there because it's going to be a fight at City Commission. And we happen to own 4 properties that view Citizens Field. It's the heart, that's the heart of our neighborhoods. There's 3 or 4 neighborhoods surrounding it. That's the center. So that's where we come together, where we meet. And thankfully for that, because most of us can't send our kids to the public schools, that's where our kids, meet and become friends. So we feel very strongly about, taking that away from our community. So, I've emailed the county or city commissioners and the mayor. People in the neighborhood know about it now, so there's thousands of people that will oppose it. So that's just one, a consideration. If we want to move forward on feasibility of that site, it's going to be a long, drawn-out fight, and we will try to stop it. So that's one thing to consider. And then I love the idea of not spending the money on basically a portable system that we lease and get rid of when the whole project is done. But let's put that into a permanent fixture in our community where, when the projects are over, that can be repurposed and used in another way that actually benefits our community and our kids, rather than wasting the money. Because kind of what we heard is, for 1 year, it's a minimum of $4 million. Over, several years, it's going to keep increasing, and depending if we need to move it. So we're talking about many millions of dollars that could be put into a permanent structure.
Could you bring your comments to a close,
yes,
please?
So keep that money, spend the money on something that's usable rather than a disposable site.
Thank you, Mr. Weber.
My name is Thomas Stewart. I live in the Duck Pond and own a small apartment complex in the bed and breakfast district. Although I obviously don't have children going to school, I've lived in Gainesville for probably 50 years now. My wife went to school here at Kirby Smith. One of the reasons that people live in this area is they like to be able to walk and bike to wherever they're going. I can see no reason whatsoever to bust them out to an area of town that's got a tremendous amount of traffic. There has got to be some small acreage of land that you can buy within this area that you can put, this facility and own it. I don't know how much it takes. Mrs. Johnson said it takes 25 acres to build an elementary school, 50 to build a high school. I don't know how much area is at Westwood, 3 or 4 or 5 acres. It shouldn't be a real problem. Spend an extra $1 million or $500,000 or whatever it takes, and own it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Miller. My husband and my land backs up to Idlewild's property, and I voted for this tax, and I'm very happy that they're going to be getting some renovations. However, I have 2 concerns. The first one is I believe that the dissemination of information could be much, much better. The first that I even heard that anything was going to happen was when my elderly mother called me up about a month or so ago and said, hey, there's a bunch of men in your backyard measuring your land and they want me to sign a paper. So I was very concerned, and so I called and I got information about it. Somebody in facilities said they would tell me, what the paper was for, but I never heard back, and I still don't know what they're planning to do with my land, if anything. My second concern is also about that neighborhood. There are many elderly people in that neighborhood. It's a very old, established neighborhood, and they probably do not have children in the system, and they probably don't know anything about what's going on. So, I'd really love for more information to be sent to neighborhood, residents. Also, another concern is there's a lot of wildlife in our neighborhood, which sounds funny because it does back up to Idlewild, but the reason we bought this house 5 years ago was because when we visited it, there were deer right on the property, and we love that. There's deer, there's birds, there's just so much beautiful land and wildlife, and we really want to preserve that somehow. Again, I don't know where these new buildings are going to be placed. I'm afraid they will be placed right behind our house, but even more concerning, I just, want us to be careful about the wildlife and preserve the flavor and the integrity of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Kathy, I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name.
Miller.
Miller, thank you. Ms. Miller.
Hi, I'm Carly Simon. I'm a parent of Alachua County Public Schools. I wanted to talk about my concerns regarding the process. My understanding is October 31st, a letter went out to families about the swing school decision, which is interesting because I was at facilities meetings back in April and beforehand and asked about swing schools, and I know that the comment was said that we won't need swing schools. So I get things change, I get talking to contractors, situations occur, but then this email went out. And then what ended up happening is I started to realize that not all school board members were aware of these policy decisions. And I would like for all 5 of you to let us know if you knew about this decision prior to the email coming out. Because I have 2 concerns. One, either all board members are not on the same page regarding these types of policies. This is a contract policy, so I do understand under Florida statute that this is a requirement that you all are informed. My understanding as well is that you were all supposed to sign a contract today, but that got pulled off. So I would also expect the board members would have been kept in the loop and everybody on the same page. The other concern I have is that if this is the case where you did not know, then I think a superintendent having these moves, because these are policy implications, these are financial implications, that is a problem. And I understand that Mr. Delaney serves as your representative and will provide advice regarding this, so I hope that that is addressed. I think it is paramount that this money is spent appropriately. You have a lot of people who have discussed their concerns. And as far as due diligence, I bring into question if due diligence was actually occurring, because we are waiting on a traffic study that will be finalized in March. That seems to be a delay. I would like you to understand that everybody in this room supports public education. It is very challenging to continue to blindly support without evidence that you all are practicing safeguards and having fiduciary responsibility and making sure that you engage the communities. I agree that let's spend our money, especially if we're talking about $1 million a year for, we were talking, what, 7-8 years? Why don't we hold on to that resource? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simon.
Hi, my name's Lindsay Hoffman. I'm the president of Westwoods PTO. We are, as an organization and as parents, of course, strongly in favor of the renovations of our buildings. There are entire classrooms on our campus that we can't use when it rains. So these are overdue and needed. But as an organization, we also have no official position on whether there's a swing school located on our campus because we don't have enough information to make that decision yet. We've been left out of this planning process until we demanded to be included, and we expect to be included moving forward. These are massive projects with massive impacts, and we're just asking to be brought along in the discussions because they'll impact our kids, our communities, our neighborhoods, and this whole county for generations to come. Any delay of timelines, I keep hearing that everything's going to be delayed, but I would suggest that any delay of timelines, it is regrettable, but that it's not the result of parents asking very basic questions, that it would be the result of poor planning up front, that we should be able to know what the impact on school start times, traffic, parking, we should be able to get all those questions answered well before contracts are signed and portables are put on our property. So we do look forward to getting enough information and partnering with the school system so that we can develop a position moving forward and work with you to get these projects done and done well so that our kids can have the buildings they deserve. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Hoffman.
Hello, my name is Clea Lorio. I teach art at Gainesville High School. I own a house on 6th Avenue, a block from here. I grew up at Gainesville. I went to Williams, Duval, Howard Bishop, Eastside, and Gainesville High School. I have a son. He's in the 6th grade at Howard Bishop. As a teacher, I feel somewhat guilty for not being more aware of the plans that we have been tossing around about what we're going to do with this money, but understandably, you know, I'm a little busy. But on that note, I feel like piggybacking on what everybody has said, this needs to be more of a transparent process. A lot of people are not in the know of what's going on. I've heard rumors today that that Tom Petty Park has already been secured. It's a backroom deal. We'll find out next week. I've heard rumors today that the portable lease is going to be signed after this meeting and that it's a done deal at Citizens Park. I've heard rumors that Gainesville High School will be completely repositioned into a swing school. That's 2,000 kids. That's the school I teach at. Nobody knows what's going on. We're all scared, we're all worried, we all have kids, we're all invested. We need to know what's happening. We need to know as employees of this district, we need to know as parents of this district, we need to know as landowners of this district what is happening. We don't know. And the trust is deteriorating, to be honest. I also want to piggyback on what Ms. McNeely was saying. I don't think that it's a good investment to put money into portables. Our schools are overcrowded. Let's build schools. Let's make schools that exist like the one right here into schools that can be used. Why are we putting money into garbage? Why not put our kids in a place where they feel valued? I can't imagine 2,000 kids sitting in Citizens Park in portables with 12-foot fences and cameras and security guards. That's a prison. We're talking about putting our kids in a prison-like situation. And that's not good for our kids, and that's not good for us, and that's not good for our communities. I would like to say that if we could possibly, in any way, I know it's a big dream, can we make this money help us build smaller schools? Our schools are too large. They're too big. We need smaller schools. We need less schools, more manageable schools. Can we take this money and make our schools a place where our kids feel at home, where we don't have 16 kids arrested in one day for gang violence? There's a real problem in this county, and I think it's the elephant in the room and nobody's looking at it. And it is emotional for me, I'm sorry. And lastly, I would like to say, please, please don't take one of the only beautiful parks on the east side of town away.
Thank you, Ms. Florio.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Reagan Garner, and I do not have children, but I do reside on the east side of town, a couple hundred yards from Citizens Park. So I will provide another emotional plea. As many people here, as a community member, again, without children, but who pays very close attention to things, I also felt blindsided by all of these decisions, beginning with the Westwood debacle. I think that initial, how that was put in the newspaper, and I think some of the terminology used, we can all agree, was problematic for many of us. And then moving into the Citizens Park plan, I have many friends in this room who teach and have children at Bishop. I care a lot. That is my community school. I want what's best for those children. But I don't think taking away this park, which they use as well for 10 years, and destroying that particular part of the neighborhood, that is not best for the children. So just another voice in that regard. And please, with the communication and transparency, we do pay attention, many of us. So there's been a hiccup there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gardner.
Good afternoon. My name is Ted Kubasek. I don't have a whole lot that hasn't been covered as far as my concerns, but I did want to touch on the idea that I want to sort of put it in your minds that when you do build the facility, wherever it is that you build the facility, that you build it in grandeur. You build a beautiful portable facility, one with the most up-to-date facilities for these kids, regardless of which space that it does. But make sure that we don't get too focused on the initial costs of what that facility would be, and instead make sure that we focus on what an opportunity it is, and we go ahead and make sure that that facility is as grand as we can make it. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Susan Botcher. I no longer have children in the public school system. Both my kids did go through K through 12. But I live in the neighborhood directly west of Westwood Middle School. And when our neighborhood first heard about the proposed plan, of course, everybody was in shock. And so we went to the December 3rd, I guess it was the December 3rd meeting. After hearing all the angles that have been examined, all the options that have been looked through, and then thinking about what is it that our neighborhood is most concerned about. We are, even though some of our neighbors don't have children, and some of our children are already out of the school system, we still want is what's best for every student, whether it's at Bishop or Westwood or Littlewood or anywhere else in the district. With that said, we also have to acknowledge that we have our own selfish interests, and that is, oh my God, what's the traffic going to be like getting in and out of my neighborhood when we've got, 2 schools on one site right there literally as you leave my neighborhood. And when you take a step back, and I hope the folks in my neighborhood and the folks that are impacted by the traffic understand that on this current plan of having the Howard Bishop kids over at Westwood, it's only going to be for 1 school year. The traffic is going to be probably pretty horrendous for 1 school year. And then it's only during rush hour in the morning and rush hour in the afternoon. When I think what kind of facility Howard Bishop is going to have at the end, what kind of facility Westwood and Littlewood will have at the end of this process, I am willing to sacrifice my convenience for about a year for this. It's going to be awful. We're going to complain. People are going to, and especially the people from the university who are driving back and forth to work, and also think that there's Farm Bureau and Nationwide Insurance who have hundreds of employees that use that same 34th Street corridor. They're going to complain too. But that's going to be for 1 year. And then Bishop kids are going to be back at home. And when we're talking about putting the kids from Westwood and Littlewood back and forth during those 2 construction processes, you're talking again another school year for each one approximately. Let's even be generous and say it's a 3-year process. I think that this is not terribly unreasonable, because when we asked to tax ourselves to do something that the state of Florida refused to do, and that's to keep our schools up to 21st century standards. Remember, those are the people that I hold responsible for all of this. They should have been funding our schools for decades, and they refused to. So we tax ourselves. We asked for this, and this is a huge, huge undertaking. And guess what? I'm a citizen who thinks if this is going to inconvenience me and our community for a period of time so that we can give our children, like Mr. White said, for generations to come, state-of-the-art schools that will benefit us for generations to come, I am willing to go through that inconvenience. And I'm going to trust that you guys are going to make the right decision. You're going to consider all the angles. And the only other last comment I will make is that we do want to make sure that there is open communication, because I don't think there's any nefarious intent. I don't think anybody's trying to be incompetent. But when you have that open communication, especially as a former elected official myself, I know that that's really important to the citizens.
Thank you.
So anyway, can the PowerPoint be put on the website? Because I know the folks in my neighborhood really want to see that, because they couldn't be here today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Botcher.
I think we can do this. That'll probably work. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Oh, it's all good. Hi, guys.
Hello.
I'm going to read something to you I'm a local author, so as a writer, I tend to like to read things that I've written out instead of just speaking off the cuff. So good evening, members of the board. My name is Hugh Suggs. I'm a 30-year Northeast resident. I have a few questions to put to you and a few comments that I hope would make you would take into consideration. First, why should remodeling schools cost us the largest open fields park on the east side of Gainesville for years? And why should we flood this residential area with increased traffic that will diminish the quality of life in the area and cause congestion problems in the surrounding neighborhoods for years? As a former teacher, parent, and resident of the proposed area, I'm concerned that the commission may be about to make a mistake of huge proportions. And I came here today in the hopes of inspiring the board and eventually our commission to remember that we residents cherish each of our neighborhood parks, especially one as important as Citizens Field. And also that when we have great power as human beings in responsible positions such as yours, the main objection should always be to improve the quality of life for the citizens that you serve, and therefore take great pains not to unnecessarily diminish it. That being said, all parks are precious. Time outside in the air and the sunshine is very precious. These neighborhood children and the busy adults who use that facility already to play, exercise, and relax, who bought homes there to be near it, won't ever get those years that this planned use back. I would like to also remind you that it's what we leave behind when we are through serving that's important. We take nothing with us when we pass from this world. One way we can measure our decisions' impact on others is the quality of our shared experiences that we've helped create. Your decisions in dealing with how to manage the process can have a great impact on our shared experiences. Time and space are valuable commodities. We were given both at great blessing, but each seems to constantly be shrinking. And we shouldn't squander either indiscriminately. We continuously vote to support having these parklands set aside for the use of our citizens to experience activities outside for the obvious health benefits that they bring for the precious time that we have to do that. They were not set aside to just be filled with buildings during remodeling projects. So as you move forward in this process, I would like for you to please remember the promises that we made to our citizens for the spaces that they've been granted to enjoy the air and the sunshine, especially these neighborhoods surrounding Citizens Park that will be so adversely affected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suggs. Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert White. I live in the neighborhood adjacent to Westwood Middle School. I have 3 school-age children, ages 6, 10, and 13. You've all individually heard from me or spoken with me personally. I've expressed my concerns about the proposal to create a swing school at Westwood. I want to bring a different concern to your attention today, which is that it comes to me continuously as a surprise that the school board members who have been willing to tell me have told me that they didn't hear of this plan until October 31st. I still can't understand how the school board could make an informed decision where they consider the relative costs and benefits of the alternative sites that were presented to us today in the PowerPoint presentation. I have heard of no reference to a comparative cost-benefit analysis of all of these different sites. I heard that the Lincoln site was dismissed because there was a drainage problem, but as we know, that's a drainage problem that the county will eventually have to repair. It's currently being repaired, and it would be a great service to the Lincoln community to have that drainage problem repaired. So that could be part of a repair project in and of itself with good value. That's a benefit. That's not a cost. I've heard references to Citizens Field. That clearly has enormous costs to the community. Did the school board consider that in considering this option, valuing the costs of a public space that serves as the anchor in that community? Did the school board consider the costs of the traffic congestion that affects not just the residents in the neighborhoods around Westwood, but our entire Gainesville community that travels either north to south or east to west on either of the three most busy junctions in the city, 34th Street, 8th Avenue, and 16th Street. Those streets already are enormously congested, and they affect everybody who's coming to our community. They affect the quality of living, the quality of our commuting time, the quality of our work life for everybody in this community. Did the school board consider that? Due diligence involves taking into account a greater set of costs besides the nickels and dimes that are associated directly with building modular units, which you can put an easy price tag on. It's clear to me that no traffic study was done. It became clear to me in the parent-teacher presentation at Westwood that there was no discussion with the chief of police, with the director of emergency services. They were completely out of the loop. Did the school board consider in its due diligence, in their due diligence of considering how to spend the money that we as a community spent a lot of time lobbying for, campaigning for, to raise to improve our schools, did the school board consider the costs that this would have on emergency response in that community? The school board clearly didn't consider the costs on utilities use, That was something that nobody had considered and turned out to be a major stumbling block in the proposal to relocate to Westwood. That's just one of many costs. I've lost confidence, I'm finishing up, I've lost complete confidence that the school board is undertaking its own due diligence in spending our money most wisely to maximize the return for all of our schools in our community. Without taking into account these costs and without any report where we can look at line by line the relative costs of these different sites alongside the proposal by Dr. McNeely of acquiring a new piece of property with new facilities, without looking at those lines, line by line, side by side, I have no confidence that the school board can make a well-informed decision about how to use our resources, and I don't think anybody in our community should.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Hello, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Jeffrey King. I have a daughter at Howard Bishop Middle School. It's a great school. We love it, and she loves being there. I'd like to suggest a solution to you. This is a very complicated urban planning problem. It's very complicated. And there are people who can help you manage this problem who deal with this professionally. And it's possible for them to conduct a feasibility study in which they weigh everything, and they do everything in a transparent fashion. They have a kickoff meeting with a charrette in which they talk to the community about what they plan to do. They have a meeting in the middle of the process in which they talk to the community about what they're doing, and then they have a conversation with the community at the end about what they just did and recommendations in which we're all involved in it. I think that you've perhaps gone a little bit too fast. And then just one final note, isn't it fantastic that we have this opportunity in Alachua County to improve our facilities? And I think that we need to spin it back up into a positive place where we look forward to the future that we're creating. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. King.
Hello, so I'm Michelle Hazen. I'm a mother of some children in town.
Get your last name again.
Hazen.
Hazen. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm a mom here. I'm a resident of the Duck Pond neighborhood. I'm a realtor. I think all those things are relevant because certainly on all fronts I'm affected by school board decisions. Certainly thankful for this half cent, thankful for the taxpayers, all of us who are going to be putting money into this. Obviously we have a lot of benefits to that, to really look at that, use that money wisely, and make some needed changes. It's interesting to me, I've asked some questions at that last Bishop meeting. The Prairie View, from what I can see, there's about $4.5 million in the budget, and I'll let you guys hopefully come up with some answers with these because I've yet to hear an answer. What's the purpose after its use as a swing school? That's my first question. The second, is this proposed modular school, what's the number of students there? Because, you know, right now we're relocating Howard Bishop there, approximately 625 students. Westwood is about 1,080, Littlewood 740. So obviously if we're, what size is that modular school that we're looking at? I also heard that we're going to be there for 3 years if we're on 34th Street, but somehow that shifts to 7 to 10 years if we're on Citizens Field. Why the difference? Certainly looking at this, it's a shame. I look around this room and I know that pretty much everyone here doesn't send their children to the zoned elementary school. I've heard that time and again from pretty much everyone. I don't know anyone at Metcalf. I know when this particular school was closed, Kirby Smith, it was a pretty functioning school. We had about 450 students. The capacity of it was about 650. At the time that this building was closed as an elementary school, Metcalf at that point had 471, and we're down to 205 students from the call I made earlier this week. I think, definitely feeling rushed. I mean, that seems to be where we are. I mean, we're not looking at things. This has been ruled out as a viable option, which is really interesting. It's been said that it's old. Well, for those of us in historic preservation that live in these older homes, we call it historic. And basically, it's Legos for adults. If it's built on a solid base, if you've got good, called a 4-point in insurance, you've got good plumbing, electric, HVAC, and a roof, you're in business. This building is also already outfitted with ADA capacities, and I think there's some sprinklers somewhere, I'm not sure. But, certainly a building that could be renovated. It was built as a school. It wasn't built as an office. It's my understanding that the county has funds that potentially we may have a new building going in the urban core. Certainly, if we're looking to infill in the urban core and have a truly walkable community, we need a community school that parents actually send their kids to. The fact that there has been no research to see how many parents in this downtown community do not attend their zone school, why has that not been researched? How did we all get left behind? I have a minute more. There were 650 pupil centers at this school when it was closed. I'm not sure what it was. It had the lowest utility costs of any building. So I'm asking that this building be included in that feasibility study. Certainly we need to slow it down. And also, just one last thing. The racism that exists in our school district on this east side of town, it has been 50 years since these schools were integrated. The fact that the percentages are what they are, shame on all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hazen.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
Board members and chair. My name is John Barrow, for the record, former city commissioner. Let's see. Attendee of Kirby Smith when it was Kirby Smith, K through 6. I do have kids, but they've just recently grown up and gone to college. Last time I was here, actually, my son, who was 8 at the time, wanted to speak about the good old controversial uniform policy. I don't know if any of you were here for that. But anyway, I'm back after a few years. And today I want to basically speak very strongly in support of the idea of just taking a little extra moment here. I think there's some great plans that you guys are working on, a lot of complexities here. And I've seen too quickly dismissed the idea of taking a better, longer, harder look at using the facilities right here. Sometimes the best solution is staring you right in your face. Take a moment, look around this building. When I say look around the building, I'm beyond these walls specifically too. I think when I talked to Michelle about this just a couple days ago, and because I don't have my own kids in school here anymore, they did go through K through 12 in the public school system here, but they're in college now. So I'm not staying as attuned to all this controversy. I did hear the controversy about the swing school at Westside, and I thought, ooh, that's kind of a sticky situation. How are they going to resolve that one? And Michelle called me a couple days ago and said, we're talking about this, and we think maybe the idea should be looked at a little harder, turning Kirby Smith, well, the school board offices, which is not a proper name for any building if you ask me, but that's another conversation for another time. But turning this facility back into a school, using it as a swing school, while you need it as a swing school, adding some temporary buildings or modulars or whatever during that part of the process, spend some of the money you'd save by not having to do as many modulars or temporary classroom buildings into rehabilitating the facility here, making it a school again, and then having the especially great benefit when you're all said and done of using it as a swing school, it can be turned back into some sort of school again. Not just a school property, but a school. So I think it's a classic old cliche win-win situation. It is a little more complicated. It does take a moment to step back a little because I think there's been a lot of kind of pushing that concept aside already. But I think with a lot of what I've heard and the concerns about traffic and the concerns about a better investment of some of that money instead of all just modulars and a temporary campus, maybe take a little better look at reusing this facility. And I know that's hard to, today, after almost 40 years or 30 or so years of this being school board offices, to think of this as a school again. But as Michelle started to point out, the bare bones are here. You've got the structure. A lot of the cost of building a facility or renovating a facility is actually in the structure, the foundation, the walls, the roof, that kind of thing. Obviously, there will have to be some modifications made to turn it back into school facilities. But most of the walls that have been put up here to make this a school board offices are partition walls. They're easily taken out. A lot of modifications that weren't here when I was here as a kid, such as air conditioning, have already been made. So
That's why it had low utility.
yeah, I pointed that out. I said it had low utilities because it wasn't air conditioning until after it was closed as a school. Anyway, so I ask you to take a moment, think about that, and I'm going to share with you, I didn't have the right technology to share with you today, some pictures I brought when this was a school. Some were from the 50s, one actually is my fourth grade class with me and some other cute kids that I'm still friends with, so that you can remember and see this again as a school. I think the pictures kind of help jog our memory about how this was a wonderful school at one time.
You can give them to Mr. Moore
Well,
there.
I thought I'd email him with a few notes,
Oh,
and
you
that way
email
you'll have them all, and I'll have them in the record that way.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Anyone else? Okay.
Hello, I'm Tanya Lopez. I've been a Alachua County resident for 25 years, teacher for 17 years, a mom. And I would like to reiterate the speed and the quickness and how I really feel like we have a great opportunity here. I'm super excited that we are investing in our schools. I teach at Kanapaha Middle School. I've done practicums over here. I know these schools are in disrepair. I really think we have this opportunity to undo this complex situation that we're in. I know we're researching and we have a lot of data on equity and equality in our county. I think that we need to focus on that. I think it's going to take some time, but I know we can do it. We are a very intelligent community. We're very awake. We have a lot of links to each other. I do want to speak to Citizens Field specifically as an athlete. I have seen this field and living near there be utilized by everyone in our community. It has football, it has soccer, lacrosse, and it would be remiss of us to take that away for a generation of people. I think it's a place that brings us all together. It fosters a healthy environment for the students and for the community. From just Sunday I was out there and it was a group of adults all playing football. I just think that taking that away from this community would be egregious. And I really think we need to pause and sit. We have so many people that have knowledge on what's going on. We could do this further. Data search and like what other communities are doing and using. I just would hate for us to jump in and use this money and just kind of a Band-Aid instead of actually making, creating like an evolution that we could as a community. So,
thank you, Ms. Lippin, very much.
Madam Chair, fellow members, David Arreola, a member of the Gainesville City Commission. I am here representing my office, District 3, lest anyone think that I'm speaking for the City of Gainesville or the City Commission as a whole. And I just want to thank you for holding this meeting so that we can begin to talk about the plans. Obviously, there's a great many number of projects that are going to need to get to be started early. And I want to say that the City of Gainesville, at least as a commissioner, what I've heard from residents is exactly what you've heard today. Which is to take into account each of their concerns, because ultimately we're all excited about the idea of transforming the school district, and that's something that everyone's really proud of. What we want to make sure is that we're avoiding all the possible externalities that could have on people's quality of life here, particularly getting to work, dropping kids off at school. You've heard the traffic concerns about the Westwood project. Just as a little note, as a commissioner, I get to see a lot of traffic studies for various different projects. Just keep an eye on the dates. Sometimes people forget that in Gainesville, between the end of the school year and then the start of the new semester, it's not an accurate count, and so you've got to make sure you get your timetable right. But going forward, we've got 14 more years up until 2033, so this is going to be a long process. And for myself as a commissioner, I just want to offer my hand And I'm glad that you all are now meeting with city management. I think that's a good step in the good direction so that we can begin to vet these options more thoroughly so that at the end of the day, we can avoid those externalities and make sure that these projects are going as smoothly as possible and the students can begin to enjoy the new facilities as soon as possible. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Mariola.
Hello, board. My name is Renee Strauss.
Hello. Renee what?
Renee Strauss.
Strauss.
I am a resident of the Duck Pond. I have 2 children in kindergarten and 2nd grade. They currently go to private school, Flowers Montessori and Lania Kea Montessori, which is near Howard Bishop. And I have 2 main things to address. The first is I was in public school not that long ago, and I had the privilege of being in portable facilities and modular buildings. And I just want to bring up that that's not an amazing experience for a kid to go to school in a trailer. So if at all possible, I would implore you to find another solution, such as the rehabilitation of an existing building or the purchase of land to construct a building so that our kids have a really quality atmosphere and environment to go to school. I know we have these beautiful renovations in place, and it would be nice for them to transition smoothly and not kind of be left out in the cold in an unideal environment. And the second thing I would like to bring up, my children both go to private school. We would love the option to go to a quality public school in the Duck Pond area. A renovation of a building like this in the east side of Gainesville could have the potential to grow this elementary community to be something really powerful and positive in the future. And I would love for you to consider that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. Anyone else?
My name is Daniel Alves. I have a daughter at Williams who possibly will go to Bishop next year, and I have a daughter at Eastside as well. My only comment is for when you're thinking about all these things, for the money that we're putting together as a community to stay local. The idea of a company coming in and dropping in a bunch of portables and then taking them away in 10 years, that's a lot of money that's just leaving our community. So I would just like for us to invest in our property here and come up with the solutions within our community. That's all. Thank you.
What's your last name again?
Alves, A-L-B-E-S.
A-L-B-E-S?
B-E-S, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Alves.
My name is Sue Legg, and I live over in the Westwood area, 2 blocks away. I celebrate the opportunity that this brings us, but my only question now is, what are the next steps? We need a timeline to know what your decision process is. So what happens next? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Legg. I think that will be on the website. Is that right, Ms. Clark?
Well, once we get through additional research and feasibility studies, and as mentioned with the traffic study, as the Commissioner pointed out, we actually are kind of limited in the time that we are allowed to do that. We've been advised that we cannot conduct a traffic study until after the holidays because of the seasonal traffic and the student mobility during that time, college student mobility. So once we get that in March, which I would assume would be close to spring break time, we're looking probably early April. Unless something comes through quicker than that, you're looking at probably early April before we would be able to bring something back with what that plan would ultimately look like.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Anyone else? I have to say this has been extremely helpful. Very thoughtful remarks from everyone, and we need this. We need this. And so I appreciate everyone who spoke tonight. I also want to express our appreciation to the citizens who supported this half-penny sales tax, who voted themselves an extra tax to transform this district. We so much appreciate that, and you're absolutely right. You need to be involved in the process. So thank you so much. Yes, Dr. McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to be one of the board members to answer the citizen who asked about the knowledge. I take a lot of heat when I see all of you at the mall, in Publix, and different places, social events. But I did want you to know that I was one that stated I was not aware of the swing school situation until the 31st. I got a call from the public information officer about that, and I wanted to be transparent before we close this session.
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. And this meeting, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Certain, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to take this time to thank the citizens for coming. Thank staff for the presentation. Also want to thank the citizens for, indeed, as was mentioned, voting. We decided to vote ourselves a tax. I also wanted to address the citizen that asked who knew, and as I responded to several emails that I received, that I did not know about that until October 31st. I think as a board and as staff, the superintendent and her team, we should heed the request of the citizens to have more engagement on the front end. I like the comment from Mr. Jeffrey King that said this is an urban planning issue that should be addressed in that manner with the charrette that would have started early on. And we did have many meetings when we were asking folks to approve the tax, but the plan for it to come out and like it did was a little shocking. Like I said, I got the call on October 31st as well, and I knew nothing about it. It was kind of a little disconcerting to see an Alachua County PTA council person make a comment on a Facebook post about the type of buildings, and I'm an elected official and didn't know that. And that put me in a bad spot because I was backpedaling because people were calling and asking me questions before I read that comment. And all I could say was that I know that they were planning to do that as a swing school, but any details I didn't know. So it put me in a bad spot, staff. It did. It really did. And I don't want us to proceed forward like that because if folks agree to tax themselves, we should be transparent and we should involve them in that. And I don't think anyone has the opinion that they don't want it in their backyard. I think they just, if we had done all of what was done today, way back when, and brought the public along with us to make this decision, I think they would have been more agreeable. But it's kind of like many people have told me that they felt this was kind of shoved down their throat as if they didn't have an option. And we don't ever want the citizens to feel like we're not listening to them and involving them in the process. So we really do want to make sure that we mend that fence, and it's going to take time, and I understand time is money and all that stuff, but we really want to make sure we're doing things right and we're involving the citizens. And if there's a cost overrun or something and we've involved the citizens, I think they're going to be more forgiving of us. But if we go down the road and we're making unilateral decisions, folks are going to not be, they have a long memory. People have a long memory, and I really want us to make sure we do right by the citizens because they did entrust us. We went to them with the need. I wasn't on the board at that time, but the staff and the board went to the citizens and said, we have this need, and it was a legitimate need, and they voted for that, and we should now continue to involve them in that. Don't just come to the citizens and want to hear from them at the ballot box for them to approve what we want to have done and then turn a deaf ear to their concerns. So let us go back to the drawing board and do our due diligence, but let us also involve the citizens. And again, thank you, each of you all, for taking out your time and coming and sharing. And believe it or not, I wrote down a lot of what you all said. Thank you all for emailing for the citizens that could not attend the meeting. I appreciate you all emailing us and letting us know what your concerns and the ideas that you have. There's a lot of knowledge in this room as well as in this community. And again, I thank each of you all for coming.
Thank you, Ms. Certain. And I will say that after all these years of waiting to get necessary renovations done, where we're patching air conditioners with duct tape and not having even the parts available for old things like air conditioning, there was an eagerness to get started on these projects. We want to make these schools beautiful. And, if we jump the gun a little bit, I hope the community will understand the thinking behind this. And I think we all generally were alerted at the same time. You know, it was a work in progress, and as things were discovered, I think there were meetings with the city manager, and other people. I think that was in the presentation. You know, maybe not enough meetings, but as I said, you have a right to have a voice, and we do appreciate that. And just know that there was no malign intent to, you know, take over your school without letting you know. It was all done, you know, with an eye to getting started on something we desperately need. And with that, I would, Mr. Hyatt, you wanted to say something? I'm sorry.
Well, I hate to step on that. I just wanted to say, join my colleagues in thanking everyone here because this works to me better than emails, even though I appreciate every email. Sure. And when you read the emails, you have people with totally sincere perspective that see things 100% differently than the other writer. But that's part of what we need to see. We need to see, we need to hear your passion. We need to hear your logic. And I would agree with everyone in that we're looking at quality of life. And I want to go back to the goal that was emphasized by Ms. Johnson. And this is inclusive of all the comments by you tonight. The goal is to avoid or minimize any potential delay. Minimize. We're going to minimize in beginning construction. But here's the key, while providing the best possible situation for students. And so it's not an either or. We have to do both of those. And also, you know, Commissioner had been to Kirby Smith. Well, I'm so old I went to Sidney Lanier and K through 6. But so these were old Gainesville schools. And but I do want to thank everybody. I made a lot of notes. And I do want to also say that when you hear rumors that, and gosh, we have a few, that I heard all the rumors I heard tonight were new. I haven't heard them for me personally, but that Gainesville High was going to be torn down or become a swing school and several others. I think one thing we do pretty well, we don't do everything well, but the information on the website as far as the plans for ongoing construction is a pretty good link. And also as far as going back to meetings in the summer, public meetings, when we were at Bishop, we heard from the architect, here's some different ways that this could be approached. So as far as specific detailed plans, I didn't have that in advance, but I did have the general thought of possibilities, and that went back again in public meetings to the summer. But to conclude, thanks to everyone here. Thanks for your concern for the quality of life, and most important, for what's best for children. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
We really have to end.
I
very
need to say
quickly.
something.
I think Dr. Paulson had his light on first.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm going to be real brief. I don't think I've ever been in a more informational meeting since I've been on the school board. Thank you very much. I mean, we got a lot of different viewpoints too, if you look back, people. So, but anyway, I really mean it. I don't think I've been in a more informational meeting. So thank you very much.
Yes, Dr. McNeil, really quickly, please. I'm sorry, but we do have a meeting.
I'll save it for 6 o'clock. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much. Thanks again, everyone, and this meeting is now adjourned.